We're joined by Chris Wagner. Now, you have a fascinating story yourself, as well as the company that you're representing. First, let's talk about why you got into cannabis.
Sure, yeah. It's, I've spent 25 years in life sciences, in the pharmaceutical biotechnology end of things. And when I first became aware of what was going on in cannabis, what really interested me was the components of cannabis. When you break it down, there's these cannabinoids, right? And there's over 100 of them. And each of those 100 have been associated with different effects in different human conditions, whether it's sleep or anxiety or anti-cancer and so on. And when I saw this list, I thought, this is amazing that for the first time in over 100 years, because it's been illegal, for the first time in over 100 years, we're now actually going to be able to study cannabis in a way that it should be studied. We basically have this tool set that I've learned that has never been applied to cannabis. So it's this tool set of modern science, modern studies, modern genomics.
Pharmaceutical grade,
high throughput screening, in silico testing, all these things that we just, all the products we consume go through, but cannabis never did.
So let's talk about the research in terms of, if licensed producers, for instance, they're going to be able to work with researchers, and much like we were talking about, Canada is in the unique ability to lead on this sector because it's going to be federally legal. So let's compare the US and Canadian market and tell the audience a little bit as to the importance of the work that needs to be done here.
Yeah, so how often does Canada get to lead the US? Or get to lead anything, quite frankly. And so this is a unique opportunity for Canada to lead because it is, as you mentioned, legal. So in the US, if you're a researcher and you get your money from a federal government source and you do cannabis research, you're going to lose your federal government funding. But in Canada, that's not the case. So we're working with researchers at UBC, researchers at McGill, we're working with researchers in the Czech Republic, we're working with researchers pretty much everywhere except the US, interestingly, on really trying to look at how specifically do these different cannabinoids affect different human conditions and studying them in a way that adults want to see the data and information presented, and regulators want to see it, and payers want to see it, and governments want to see it. People really want to know what does cannabis do? And how should I use it with confidence so I can have a predictable result every time I use it? We all know if you have a glass of wine, you know what happens. If you have 2 glasses of wine, you know what happens. 3, you know what happens. But with cannabis right now, you don't really know.
So where are we in terms of evolution within the product based on not only purity, but also professional dosing? Because I think that that's the huge thing here within the science community is we're able to now go ahead and dose it correctly.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So this is the low-hanging fruit. So when I, you mentioned what got me interested in this industry. What got me interested was the potential to do good science and good things for people. Accurate dosing and product consistency and quality is low-hanging fruit because it does not exist today. So, we grow these plants, and from, one person calls it this certain strain, and another group calls it the same strain. They are totally different.
Absolutely.
And they're different not only between the 2 producers, but they're different every time they're consumed as well. So applying standardization of dosing and delivery makes a lot of sense, and it's one of the first things we're going to do, because if you want to have confidence that when you take this, I'm going to have this result, the dosing needs to be right.
Absolutely.
The product consistency needs to be right. And so that's ground level entry. Interestingly, it doesn't exist today, but that is exactly where we're headed.
So as we destigmatize the industry and the product itself, we talk to consumers and some advocates where they say, listen, it's too scientific right now. Let's just get back to Mother Nature. Let's just put it in the soil. But really, them together is what the future of the industry is, because it's going to encourage the user to be able to use it for the correct reasons.
Yeah. Science often has a way of alienating people because the words are complex. But at the end of the day, it's about understanding what you're taking, where it came from, what you're taking, what it is, and what you're taking, what outcome you're going to expect. And you should be able to expect the exact same thing every single time. And so is that natural? I don't know. Is that back to nature? I'm not sure.
Right.
Is it scientific? It's certainly a scientific method. Is it confusing? Might be.
Yeah.
But that's what we're going to do. We're going to use the scientific method and medical approaches.
Right.
But we are going to try to make it understandable for the people who wish to consume it.
So let's break down stigma within the scientific community and how it's adapted even in the past 2 years.
Yeah. So stigma within the scientific community is an interesting one because theoretically scientists shouldn't care.
Yeah.
This is a chemical or a product, and it shouldn't matter what it is. We should be able to study it.
Right.
But they do care because of the politics that are layered on top of it.
Right.
And so the politics have made it difficult for really good research to go on. And that in turn stigmatizes it. I think we will see a slow lowering of stigma as time goes on.
Right.
I think scientists the stigma will reduce. Within governments, the stigma will reduce. Within society, it will reduce. Because quite frankly, it's not, cannabis is not the stigmatized thing that governments for a long time have wanted us to believe.
Right.
It is truly is this sort of magical, wonderful plant that we need to pull apart and understand, but it is not anything that the devil brought, or it is not something to be afraid of. This is something to embrace and do good things with, and we can do that, and we're going to do that.
So as a licensed producer then, how do you conquer stigma based on public awareness and education? What's the approach there?
Yeah, I think people need to be educated to understand the product. They need to be educated to understand whether it's right for them. And so what we are doing is we're trying to provide research and data so they can feel comfortable with that information, because most of the research and data that's out there today is not very well done.
Right.
Because of the stigma and the other things we've spoken of. It's been very difficult. We can't test it. So it's difficult to do good research. So to do good research and to get people feeling comfortable, we need to do that research and communicate it to people. And that will, and of course there's the marketing and the branding and the softer elements that go along with that, which we will do as well. But it's really, it all comes from a foundation of this is very reliable, good product that's well studied, and now we can tell you about it, and you should feel comfortable about it because now we understand.
Let's be future tellers for a second. Come July 2018, where do you see the industry going? What excites you the most about it?
So it's everything excites. It's July, incredible. Right? Yeah, I mean it's how do you overstate how it's a big social experiment. It's going to be incredible. There will be.
Can we keep up with supply?
I think so. I think the bottleneck now is actually on the retail end of things. I think the licensed producers are, we've got over 1 million square feet of grow capacity and more on hand if it should be required. So we can produce hundreds of thousands of kilos of cannabis, and so can some other licensed producers. There's a couple of big ones like us, and so I don't think undersupply is going to be a problem, but I think that getting it into the hands of consumers who
distribution
wish,
chain.
So it depending on the province, there's different. So it'll be bumpy. I don't think the wheels are going to fall off the bus. I don't think we're going to see mass chaos. I think it'll be fun and interesting. There's going to be all kinds of stories.
It's exciting times.
It's exciting. We're going to watch and participate.
I love it.
I can't predict what's going to happen, except that it's going to be fun and exciting.
Well, we got to get you on past that legalization date. Chris, thank you for coming on the show.